Good day, and you are watching another episode of Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. I am your host, Rondell Donawa, attorney at law, and once again, I'm happy to bring the law and you. So today we have a very packed program dealing with legal aid. How does Legal Aid and Advisory Authority pursue access to justice? And I have two guests in studio who are the Chief Public Defender, Ms. Hasine Shaikh, and also an established legal officer of the Legal Aid and Advisory Authority, Ms. Stacey Waithe. Before I bring them on in studio, just a bit about Ms. Shaikh. She assumed the role of Trinidad and Tobago's first Chief Public Defender in March of 2020, with more than 10 years of experience as a criminal defense attorney. Now, her passion for criminal law and the advancement of the criminal justice system is seen in her specialization in her Master's in Law in Criminology and Criminal Justice in 2016 from the University of London. Now, as Chief Public Defender, she has taken on the mantle of leading the change as to how defense is done to Trinidad and Tobago, using progressive systems and extensive training for her department. Now, she continues to navigate these uncharted waters, of course, as the first public defender, using the mantra that a leader is only as good as her team. Also, we have Ms. Stacey Waithe, who is an attorney at law as well, who specializes in civil and concentrates on family law. She has over 10 years of experience working with clients to assist them through divorce while taking their individuals into consideration. She advises clients on all aspects of the law. She has been working with the Legal Aid and Advisory Authority since 2010 and is currently the authority's established senior legal officer. So we have two learned young ladies here in studio today. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And thank you for joining us on Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital.
Happy to be here.
Having us. Yes.
And of course, you know, as Chief Public Defender and as established legal officers, I know we are in good hands. And of course, being persons in this role, I'm sure it's a lot to do.
Absolutely.
It can be at times, yes.
Yes, so let's start with you, Ms. Waithe. Tell us, what is legal aid?
Well, legal aid is really and truly where someone comes to get some sort of advice. It could be legal advice or legal representation for any type of matters that they may have at the court, as well as persons who may be charged. You do have duty counsel, so you get representations at the police station as well. And
legal aid, is this something established by law?
Yes, it was established by law in 1976, and the Act, we are governed by the Legal Aid and Advisory Act.
And in terms of the body, the governing body is the Legal Aid and Advisory Authority.
Yes.
Now, what services, as the legal aid, what services do they provide in terms of representation?
Well, representation, we give representation at the magisterial court. We also give representation at the civil high court. And of course, Ms. Shaikh's department in the criminal division.
Now, is it that there is now a separation in terms of criminal and civil as a result of public defenders? Of course, Ms. Shaikh be
there is a separation, but there is a differentiation. So you have the criminal magisterial matters, and then you have the criminal high court matters. So the civil department, we still maintain some aspects of the magisterial criminal matters.
And tell us, what type of matters? I mean, you know, you say civils. Now, civil has a wide range of matters. So could you just break down in terms of what type of matters are qualified or provided under legal aid?
Well, within the criminal, I wouldn't say criminal, but within the civil arena, we look at divorces, anything under the Matrimonial Proceedings Act. Someone may have a property dispute. You may want to make an application to insert parents' name on a birth certificate. Anything that is civil in nature, we look at it. You may want to, someone may bring you up they may be encroaching on your property. And all of those things we look at the Legal Aid and Advisory Authority.
What about probate? Is probate and let's say conveyancing?
Yes.
Are those
probate as well? We look at probate. There is a limit in terms of what is the value of the estate. So within the Act, we are governed by the Act. Everything that we do, it's within the limits of the Act. So we don't go outside of the Act. So in the Act, an estate must be valued over, well, at least less than $100,000 to qualify for legal aid to grant.
And now, of course, legally, there has to be some sort of criteria to qualify for legal aid. So can you tell us what are the criteria to qualify for legal aid?
Well, when we say criteria, anyone that comes to legal aid for advice, we give you advice in all aspects of the law, as long as you are over the age of 18. However, there are magisterial matters and there are also the High Court civil matters. So if it's a magisterial matter, we facilitate the application. And that application, the applicants, they would have to return that application to the respective court where the matter is being heard.
Yes.
And the judicial officer normally grant legal aid or they refuse legal aid.
No, if let's go with the granting of legal aid. Of course, they would the litigants will attend the office.
Yes.
What sort of documentation that you ask for with respect to a person applying for legal aid?
First and foremost, they would have to initiate the matter at the respective court. So let's say, for instance, someone may want a protection order. They would institute that application and they return to us with the summons. So that summons would have the name of the parties, the case number. We facilitate the application, and that application, it's returned to the respective court. The applicant carries that application.
So let's say, for instance, I mean, you must, in terms of employment, is it that you must satisfy that you earn a certain amount of money, or in terms of assets to qualify for legal aid?
It depends. Really and truly, you have magisterial matters and then you have civil high court.
Yes.
For the magisterial matters, the judicial officer, they are the one who grants legal aid. So they can either refuse it or they can actually approve those applications. And we accommodate the applications by assigning an attorney at law to the matter as a matter of urgency.
But therefore, on what basis, in terms of, okay, does anyone who goes before the court and say, well, I don't have money to hire an attorney, can the judicial officer just grant legal aid without following some sort of guidelines as to how someone can get legal aid?
Well, the application on a whole, there is a part that actually asks you some small information with respect to your financial status. And that information is normally sworn before a commission of affidavits. And based on that application, the judicial officer grants legal aid. In most cases, in the interest of justice,
yes,
they do grant legal aid. Really and truly, it's a very rare circumstance where the judicial officer denies legal aid. Now, that is for the magisterial matter.
Yes.
So for the high court matters, the applicants, they would come to legal aid and they would be met with a legal officer. Legal officer would advise them, and they may have to defend an application or they may want to initiate an application. And we are governed by the Legal Aid and Advisory Act. So there is a criteria that you must meet. So we look at your disposable income, we look at your disposable capital for a period of 12 months. And if your disposable income is $36,000 or less,
$36,000 or less per annum?
Per annum.
Okay.
And your disposable capital is $20,000, you will qualify for legal aid.
Okay, and that does include you can't own a house and expect to
as long as your
legal aid.
Disposable capital is less than $20,000, and in some cases, let's say for instance, someone wants to make an application for divorce, and part of the divorce it involves property settlement. Once the item or the asset is part of the litigation, we do not take that into account.
Understood. So let's bring in Miss Hasine Shaikh. Good morning.
Good morning again.
I didn't forget you, but
no,
of course, you know, it's a preamble. Now, you have been appointed the first public defender in Trinidad and Tobago, so congratulations.
Thank you.
So tell us, because a lot of persons don't know, I think they still don't know what is a public defender, or how was it created? So let's start. Who is a public defender?
Well, the Public Defender's Department is created under the Legal Aid and Advisory Authority. So we're a department within the Legal Aid and Advisory Authority. We primarily do criminal high court matters, but in terms of who a public defender is, we are full-time state-paid defense attorneys. That is who we are. So what we do every day is basically criminal high court matters for the majority of it. It's not that we wouldn't do magisterial matters, but we're limited in numbers.
Yes.
So that was a criteria in terms of deciding where was the best use of our time and resources. So that's why we're focused at the high court level at this stage. But a public defender is a defense attorney who is state paid, who acts for legal aid applicants.
And this is solely applicants who are unable to afford legal representation.
Correct. But just as Ms. Waithe said, that process of application and the decision as to whether they qualify is a judicial function. So the judicial officer would decide if this person can access legal aid. So once we get that judge's certificate or master, whoever signs off on it, then we make the relevant assignments.
Now, it's interesting to know that you stated that you're a state-paid permanent, contractor, whomever employees. Now, with legal aid being someone who was on the legal aid panel at some point, is it that it's different because with legal aid you assign attorneys?
So yes and no. So we have not, we are a combination of the two. Because of the sheer number of matters before the courts, it is impossible for the staff that we have within the Public Defender's Department. So right now we're at about 24 attorneys. So with that number, it is just physically impossible to be able to do all of the matters that are before the High Court. So we still assign matters out to the external bar. So attorneys at the external bar who have signed up to be on the panel, who have indicated an interest to do criminal matters, they would tell us what type of matters they want to do. We still assign that out to them.
And
that hasn't changed.
And this is the same as with with legal aid on a whole. Is it that all your matters are assigned, or do legal aid attorneys, do you all have the cadre of staff to preside over matters?
We do have staff, in-house legal officers, and they are assigned matters as well, civil matters. And we have, as Ms. Shaikh said, we do have a panel of attorneys. They apply to be on the panel. They say what type of matters they would like, which court they would like to be assigned to, and we assign matters to them as well. And then you have, in some cases, where the applicants on a whole, they prefer particular attorneys.
Yes.
I guess because they would have been comfortable with them in previous matters, so they prefer the request
so they can
attorneys.
Request once the attorney consents?
Yes, they can.
So Ms. Shaikh, tell us, what was the need for a public defender's department in Trinidad and Tobago? Because as far as I know, you see that a lot in the United States jurisdiction.
Yes. Well, I mean, and that's the thing. I think people hear the word public defender and they think what they saw on TV.
Yes.
So it's similar, but not exactly the same. Because we are full-time, we're full-time defense attorneys doing this. We all came from the criminal arena. So I myself would have been a defense attorney at the private bar prior to assuming this role. That's actually all I've ever done. I've always been a defense attorney. So this was a natural transition for me. Yeah. All of the persons who come into the department more or less have some level of criminal background, with the exception of the persons who come in at the entry level, because we do have entry level positions where criminal experience is not required. But thereafter, all the other positions basically require criminal experience. The reasoning behind it is that we have an exceptionally small criminal bar.
Yes.
Sometimes you can count on your hands and toes how many people you have.
And I know the governments, past and present, have been trying to entice attorneys by increasing compensation packages. I don't know if that works.
Sometimes. There's a combination of factors that why the criminal practice is not as attractive. The length of time a matter takes, the limited number of courts, and I know there's a number of bits of legislation and agenda in terms of what the government plans to do to treat with those areas. So we've heard a lot about that. But for us, the idea was, if there were attorneys who were doing full-time defense work, who would be able to deal with matters, because the reality is, for those at the private bar, it was a scheduling issue. It was also it's one person, and given it's small, how many matters can they do at a time? And then they were also balancing their private paying work together with the legal aid clients.
And of course, sometimes some attorneys would prioritize.
Correct. It became a priority.
Yes.
And ultimately, you would have to decide which was the matter that you can do at any given time. And given that, we don't have an exorbitant number of courts yet, it meant that very limited numbers could have been done at a time. So the hope is, with us, we would be able to step in and fill that gap So, I mean, of course, COVID happened, so we haven't been able to actively do as much as we have hoped.
Because that was my next question. How many cases have the Public Defender's Department presided over since establishing?
Since our establishing, since of March, so I would have gone through recruitment process. So I would say the department came about at the 24 in about July of last year. So in a year's time, we currently have 260 matters that we are actively in court for. So 260 matters that are split amongst us that we are actively doing. In terms of the numbers of matters that have completed, I mean, matters complete in different ways. We have actually only had one trial. We've had about 5 MSIs. We've had about 3 guilty pleas. This week alone, we had 3 matters that were completed. So this was a good week for us. Yes. But, you know, it really varies.
Does this include a matter? There was a recent judgment in the Court of Appeal that basically, I think is the controversial Amy Monturo matter. Did public defenders
yes, the public defenders did participate in that. The instructing attorney, Ms. Talisa Helwig Robertson, she is a public defender and would have participated in that matter.
So the hope of the Public Defender's Department is to dispose of the backlog of the criminal justice system?
The idea is that we're to step in and to do good work, give the clients access to justice, and basically push matters forward and try to get matters before the court. We've had a year of COVID regulations. We've had a year of many different things happening. So our aim in the party has been to get as many matters trial ready as possible. And then as soon as the courts are ready for us, we are ready to roll.
But then that also requires the readiness of all parties, which is one, the prosecution. Correct. A lot of times you see that when you go before the prosecution, they're not ready. So witnesses are not ready, and so that delays the system.
That is definitely a contributing factor to the efficiency of my department. I mean, the reality is we're not the only person in the court. We are one of the stakeholders. So we do require the other parties to be ready as well. So that's unfortunately something that's not exactly in our control. Yeah. But I mean, we do try to work around that because we appreciate that every other stakeholder has its own challenges. So I mean, the Plea Bargaining Act has been a really big role for us. So we've been trying to use that as much as possible. Yeah. We've been actively writing to the director, actively trying to get matters, because there are a number of persons who are in jail who wish to plead guilty. Yeah. A lot of them don't have their indictments filed, so we've been actively working with the courts to get those committal bundles ready to push matters forward. So the thing is, if everyone actually pulls a little bit of their weight, I think we can definitely reach that end goal.
Indeed. Now, Ms. Waithe, what is the waiting time for civil matters? What is the waiting time for a litigant in terms of a person requiring legal aid to be assigned an attorney?
Once the matter has been approved, within a couple of days, they are assigned an attorney.
Now, you say once the matter is approved. Now, approved by whom?
Approved by the board. Right. So once the application goes before the board, there is an investigation process prior to that. So the investigations department, they do background checks, they ask the applicants to submit documents, and then when they finish their process, that information is summarized in a report, and that report is submitted to the board. And the board meets once per month.
No, in reality, as an attorney myself, we've seen that sometimes this approach doesn't work well because of the fact that it takes a while. Especially if, let's say, for instance, it's a divorce matter.
Yes.
And if you don't have an attorney prior or preferred attorney, then you now have to wait to be assigned to defend your matter, which now means that justice is being delayed. Yes. I mean, I know you are an employee of the Legal Aid Advisory Authority, but what is there any way that Legal Aid is trying to see how best they can speed up these assignments? I mean, knowing that the reality now, the board meeting once a month is really not sufficient to approve all these cases?
Well, I would say that in some cases, we have the applicants, they are tardy in submitting documents.
Right.
So sometimes they may be served with pleadings, and they wait until the last minute to actually approach legal aid for representation. So that is a factor that has to be taken into account as well. And then we have to get documents from these applicants. Remember, this is public funds we are looking at. We cannot just grant legal aid to anyone who comes to apply for legal aid. There is a test that must be satisfied, and that is governed under the Legal Aid and Advisory Act. Now, in some cases, based on, we do a preliminary report, and if it is, we see, yes, this person will qualify for legal aid, we grant emergency certificates to these applicants, and they do get representation. In some cases, when they meet with a legal officer, and the legal officer, in their discretion, they say, you know what, this person really is in need of urgent intervention, they can also assist as a friend to the court.
Indeed. Now, in terms of persons who have been assigned an attorney, what is the procedure in terms of assignment from legal aid?
After it has been approved, the application has been approved, the applicants are informed that they are approved, and we assign an attorney as a matter of urgency. So let's say board meeting is today.
Yes.
And they approve 5 matters. I'm just calling a number. And by tomorrow, letters are dispatched, and they will be informed that the application was approved. Once they receive that, they have to sign an acceptance.
And letters are dispatched via mail?
Via mail. Now with COVID, we dispatch it via email. Some applicants, they may not have the access to internet because of their means, because of their circumstances. And we ask for an alternative. They may have a relative or so forth, and we also ask for that as well. So communication has improved. It's quicker now, thanks to COVID.
Well, I've always said that COVID has its positives and negatives.
It has.
I think the positive is that now you cut the paper trail and you're able to now do things electronically.
Yes.
And most persons now are finding some way to create email addresses.
Yes.
Because even in the court system, you have to have access to internet in order to appear. And of course, that is, it can be unfair as well to litigants too, because now with the court offices being closed, before you could have gone to the court to upload your whatever petition or whatever it is, but now you have to do it online, in person.
Yes.
Now, Miss Shaikh, the Public Defender's Department, do you all have a program in place in terms of a target of cases per month to complete to ensure that justice is swift?
I wish it was so easy. I wish it was so easy for me to establish a target and achieve it. We don't have a target in place for the simple reason, as I would have explained. It's just that given that we're just but one stakeholder, it doesn't work like that. Because we can be as ready as we are. I mean, currently I have 20 matters that are actively being pursued for a plea. We would have written to the director over a number of months and so forth. So we're waiting on those matters to come back. And could you
just explain, because of course this is the layman's program. Could you just explain what is a plea?
So for persons who indicate that they wish to plead guilty, under the Plea Bargaining Act, you can write to the Director of Public Prosecutions and you can indicate that based on the documents that are before him, you believe that you can plead guilty. Now, you can plead guilty in a number of ways. You can plead guilty for different types of matters. Now, it is not possible to plead guilty to murder. So you have to qualify, for want of a better word. You have to fill a criteria. So it has to be that you have provocation arising. You must have something else on that committal bundle that goes before the director to say, well, listen, I'm not guilty of murder, but I'm guilty of manslaughter. Yeah. And you can plead to that. But again, all of these things requires another person to step in and give permission, because you can't just go before the court and do that, especially for the murder. And then the Plea Bargaining Act also allows for other things. It allows us to agree sentence. It allows us to fast track the process a lot. But again, because we are contingent on other stakeholders doing their part, it does slow down the process slightly. But in terms of if we have a viable target, as I said, we have about 260 matters right now. Every month, we have about 20 to 30 matters that are added onto our list.
And that is a lot, I mean, for per human.
Correct. It is a lot at any given time. Yes. And that is, of course, and during the month we still have matters that are going out to the external bar. That hasn't stopped. So when you think about the sheer number of matters that it is a huge task.
Yes.
But the idea is that we try to identify those matters that can be dealt with quickly, the low-hanging fruit, so to speak. So whether it be by virtue of persons who want to indicate a particular position to the court, whether they want to go through the route of writing to the director, or if they simply want to try to push their matter doing judge alone.
And this director is whom? This is Director of Legal Aid?
The Director of Public Prosecution.
Public Prosecutor, okay.
Correct. So which is our major stakeholder that we interact with. So I mean, there are different avenues. The judge alone aspect has also been something that a number of persons have taken up, which they wouldn't have taken up pre-COVID.
Indeed.
Because now you cannot have a jury trial in light of the prevailing conditions. So that has been something that has also been actively used. But for those that are waiting on jury trial, unfortunately, it's within their rights. So we have to wait.
Yes.
So that does delay their matters a bit further.
Now let's deal with the prison system. Now,
sure.
I see Ms. Waithe smiling. I've seen and heard attorneys, even persons within the prison system during this COVID period, especially attorneys, defense attorneys. There has been a lot of issues taking instructions from these prisoners. And of course, many of these attorneys are also legal aid attorneys. What is legal aid doing to speed up that process in terms of taking instructions, virtual instructions? Because I know practice directions keep on changing, or it's fluid. Anyone?
So what we did, at least on the criminal side, but we are using it as well for civil. We would have started up a process in May. It took a little while because we had to work with the AG's office. We actually got a donation of laptops from the British High Commission as well. And with those laptops, we were actually able to put laptops into the prison. So each prison location has maybe 2 to 3 laptops, depending on the numbers that they have in that prison. And we use that to be able to virtually speak with our clients. Now, of course, with any new system, there is a huge teething process. So it's working.
Because as well from what I've heard is that even the laptops possibly are slow, so therefore the instructions are slow in coming, and there are a lot of technical issues.
Correct, and that is the nature of technology, right? So that is the nature of technology. You have to factor in laptops, bandwidth, whether it have rain that day. Yeah. A whole lot of things can affect how these things work.
Just purchase faster laptops.
Unfortunately, we need a whole lot of things to do that. I mean, the economic times are what it is.
Indeed.
So, I mean, we are grateful for what has been provided to us by the AG's office as well as the British High Commission, because it has allowed us the ability to communicate with our clients and advance the matters that we have been able to.
Yes.
So the way that it works is that you're able to sit in the comfort of your home, because a lot of our attorneys are working at home. You can sit in the comfort of your home. You can actually see the client, speak to him, and get whatever instructions you need, have whatever relevant documents that are signed. Of course, you have to consider not everything can be said in that realm, because there are always confidentiality issues. And then you have to appreciate that not every prisoner might be comfortable doing it that way. Some like to old school see you in person.
Precise. And now you can't see.
No. Correct.
You can't visit personally because, of course, your conversations are recorded.
Yes. Absolutely.
Right?
So all of that factors into it. But we have also been actively working with the Law Association so that we are, I believe as recently as this week, Council of the Law Association would have approved provision of laptops as well.
Certainly.
To get to get more into the prison, and we are actively working on extending it to more persons within the profession, so that more attorneys can actually do it. Of course, it's a scheduling system, all of that, but all of that is working on. I mean, as we all said, COVID has helped. To push us in this direction, because I mean, you might know, you go to the prison, you're spending the day.
Indeed.
So it will allow you to get a lot of things done faster.
No, Ms. Waithe, this was a question I would have asked you prior to this conversation.
Yes.
There are a lot of attorneys who are assigned legal aid matters, and in the middle of the matter, they return these files. Is that something that is ethical, or is that something that legal aid takes seriously?
Well, we respect the attorneys, their wishes. They may have personal reasons. Some of them, they may migrate, whatever the reason is. But once they have returned the brief, we will assign it to someone else. What we try to do to speed up the process, we would normally contact the attorney prior and ask them if they are willing to have conduct of this matter and then assign it to them. Because you don't want to assign it, then they return it.
Yes.
And all of that would affect access to justice. So we normally assign it. Once they give a reason, they ask leave of the court, that's fine with us.
And of course, legal aid. Legal aid is, are you all continuously evolving in terms of how you all try to bring access to justice closer to the person needing it?
Yes, well, when Ms. Shaikh assumed that position, we had a differentiation. So she's involved in the criminal arena and we are involved in the civil arena. We have improved our IT functions. We have an internal case management system where everything is done electronically as well. We give advice. The civil department, we work remotely as well. So we give advice remotely. Persons who are accessing legal aid, everything is done online.
Well, that is great, yeah. And I do hope, we are out of time, unfortunately, and I do hope that this brought some sense of comfort to persons who are wishing to. Before we continue, can we just give a phone number for persons seeking legal aid? Quickly?
So if you want, you can call 638-5222.
638-5222, and of course you all have offices throughout.
Well, we have an office in Chagonas, we have an office in Arima, upstairs Pennywise, San Fernando, Tobago, and of course our Port of Spain office, which is the head office. And you can also view us on the website. It's www.l.gov.tt.
Thank you very much. Ms. Stacey Waithe and Ms. Hasine Shaikh, thank you very much for joining us on Strictly Legal.
Thank you for having us.
And I'm sure we are appreciative of you. So you have been watching Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Thank you for watching. See you next time. God bless.